Hey, hello everybody. I'm so excited to be here for our WebinART, and I am going to bring in Kendra Binney in just a moment. You're going to love meeting her and love looking at her work. But first, I want to tell you that we just had our residency remotely. It was going to be in real life, and we had it for our artists, 6 of them, where they spent a week working intensely with me on their children's book pitches, which are amazing. So I'm telling art directors and editors, contact us if you are interested in seeing these pitches. They're really extraordinary, very original. Of course, you know, the art will be spectacular, and they're authored, illustrated by our illustrators. So that's really good news. Next webinar, next week, we won't have a webinar, but the following week on June 11th, we will have Sarah Walsh. You'll really love her. She's so full of energy and her art's amazing. So I'm going to launch a poll too. And if you could take a moment to fill that out while we're gathering people, hope that works. It's the first time we're doing that. So fill that in if you have a moment, and get ready to chat with Kendra and me. If you have questions for Kendra or me, please put them in the Q&A panel, which you'll find down there, and not in the chat panel. So put them in the Q&A panel, and that way we can see them from all the comments. Please feel free to chat with all your comments, all the comments that you want. Thank you for filling out the poll. I see you doing that. I can see it fill. It's so cool, technology. When you do the chat, please click send to all panelists and attendees, okay? All panelists and attendees, so that everyone can see it if you would like that. We are going to have a giveaway at the end, so stay at the end, and Kendra's going to show you. It's a beautiful Kendra journal that you are going to want. And so now let me bring in Kendra, and we're going to get to see Kendra, and here she is. Yay.
Hi.
Hi, Kendra. I'm so happy to have you here today. Thank you for joining me in your beautiful studio with all those great drawers. Where did you get that white thing behind you with all the drawers?
I stole it from my mom's garage, and then I painted it and put knobs on it. It was really kind of a mess, but I like it now.
And what goes in that? What goes in those drawers?
Kind of everything. There's a lot of art supplies. There's a lot of, I have like little oils and like different scented candles and stuff I keep in there too. It's kind of like my apothecary kind of thing.
Fantastic. Well, let me introduce Kendra to everyone. Kendra was raised in a small mountain town with no shoe stores. That's almost a children's book right there. Actually, should do that. Most of her time was spent barefoot treading through the minuscule world of spiders, snakes, and all things hiding in the grass. She transfers this closeness with the small and obscure into her paintings. Through scenes of intricate landscapes and a cast of endearing animals and children, she creates a dreamy world draped in color, texture, and fantasy. It's true. Kendra studied graphic design at Pratt Institute in New York, in Brooklyn, and Pacific Northwest College of Art. Though she never took a painting class, which I find really hard to believe, but she quickly realized that was her true passion, has been painting ever since. And by the way, she took several of my maths classes, I believe, but in one we did, the artists were to do a painting one week, and I loved it so much I purchased it from her. And I have it hanging up there. It's absolutely beautiful. That was before I took her on. It's a pretty good sign if I buy your original art. You know, it's a pretty good sign. Although her work has been sold, published, and exhibited around the world, Kendra spends most of her time in her small home studio in Vancouver, Washington, not Vancouver, Canada, Vancouver, Washington. When she's not painting, she's usually playing in the dirt or bringing home stray animals. Her clients include Microsoft, Vinyl Films, American Greetings, Roger Laborde. She's done a ton of cards and journals and things with them. Oopsie Daisy, Design House Greetings, Amber Lotus, Hachette Children's Publishing, Sterling Publishing, Page Street Publishing, and she just finished a fully illustrated, gorgeous book. Do you know when that comes out, Kendra?
Just the beginning of next year. I don't know the exact month.
That's great. We'll look for it. We'll promote it in our newsletter. She's done lots of wall decor, the fully illustrated books, and greeting cards. So welcome, Kendra. I'm so glad you're here. You know what everyone always wants to know is the artist's work process. And you have a really interesting work process. Tell us a bit about how you work and the kind of paint you use. I know you showed us that at the retreat last year.
Yeah, I can show some of my cheap paint. So I think the main way that I start a painting or a piece is I think of like kind of a mood that I want or color schemes that I like. I am not very good at visualizing in my head what I want something to look like. I can't come up with an idea and then paint it or sketch it. So I usually start by cutting out lots of little bits of textures and other paintings I've done and kind of put them on and then see how it transforms into something. So yeah. I use a lot of collage and then kind of build it from there.
That's great. That's great. So, we all would think that you use, looking at all these chats, wow. You would think that Kendra uses the very finest paint money can buy because her work is so lush, and you'll see it soon. But tell them the truth about your paint.
Samples, so I mostly use this cheap craft paint that you buy at craft stores. I think it's like for toll painting, but you can buy it in a million colors. It's like 50 cents if you get it on sale. So I use a lot of that, and then kind of, to mix it in, I use like these fluid acrylics that are like much, a little bit brighter and make the paint go a little further. But
and why, so how did you get into that? Why cheap paint and why not fancy paint? I mean, I'm sure it was budgetary in the beginning.
I don't really remember. I think it was probably money. I never, like I said, I didn't really ever take formal painting classes. So it's not like I ever had this idea that there was a certain type of material you should use. So when I went shopping and looked for art supplies, I just thought, well, this one's cheap and colorful. I'm going to buy a bunch of these. And then I just kind of been sticking with them. They're actually pretty versatile. I think it's interesting.
Riley Wilkinson, hello Riley, says she turns clearance into gold. I love that. That's so good. And obviously it works for you. So that's amazing. That's kind of a stunning revelation. And so you do the paint and you scan it in and manipulate?
Yeah, so I used to do it entirely I would paint on wood and I would cut things out and kind of Mod Podge different things on wood and do it all traditional in media, all with scissors and paper and like a flat surface. But since I started doing more illustration and things for clients, I've started doing that process in Photoshop more often. So it's like a bunch of different paintings that then kind of get basically cut up and collaged together digitally as opposed to, on a surface.
And the painting I have was obviously not at all digital.
Right. No, that's
media. Unless you.
But I have used some of the parts of that in other things. From like, I'll take prints of things like I'll take a print of something and then still kind of cut it out and put it in paintings and use things that way.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. And then you cover your paintings with resin. And so they have this beautiful sheen, this thick, like glassy. Will you give people your Etsy or website address where they can buy your paintings? Might as well plug those.
Yeah, sure. So I don't have a lot on Etsy right now. I've started doing commission work for the summer. So I have custom work is open right now, but the address for that is, oh, it's just Kendra Binney. What is it? Etsy.com/Kendra Binney, I think. And then my website is Kendra-Binney.
And of course, you can see all of her work on our website, lillarogers.com, and then click on the artist tab and click on Kendra Binney and get ready to be thrilled. So, you know, we have art directors watching and artists watching. What we'd like to know what you think. You've worked with lots of art directors. What makes a great art director? What things do you like in an art director?
I mean, every art director I've worked with has been amazing. I haven't had any negative experiences. I kind of, one of the things about working with art directors that is different than working with like a private customer when I do commissions, because I've done, you know, commissioned work where I'm hired to do kind of a specific thing by someone for years and years. But working with art directors is a little of a newer thing since I've transferred to illustration. And the thing I really like about working with them is that I think because they have so much knowledge of their industry and what they are trying to accomplish, they have sometimes have a really clear vision of what they're looking for. And I think it can be really helpful to almost to be pushed a little by them. Like, I like it when they give tons of feedback and say, and then can you do this and this and this? And the first instinct is like, well, that's impossible. There's no way I can do that. You guys are crazy.
Right.
But then,
right.
But then like reflecting on it a little, I think it always pushes me to do something that I might not have in my own life forced myself to do. So I think that's a quality I really like, is when they're very specific and they have an idea of what they're looking for, and they, you know, it's almost like getting a free critique and a free lesson from an expert in a field where they're saying, you know, this would really help this. And it might be something you hadn't thought of or, you know, even thought you could do. And it's kind of a great way to really push yourself and grow, I think.
I totally agree. You're reminding me when I was an illustrator too. And when I was on the earlier side and working with really great art directors, yeah, it is like a free critique. And you're like, and they teach you, they train you, and they make you better. That's really true. That's great. Yeah, seasoned art director. Yeah. That's right. I forgot about that. I had
one project actually where I was on the phone, and there was 3 or 4 art directors on the phone call, and they were all giving a different type of feedback. So I had 4. And at the end of the phone call, I remember I was just like, oh, I have no idea what to do with all of this. But I mean, it was really challenging, but I think like trying to figure out a way, like, because I think one, you have to have confidence that you can do what other people think you can do. I think sometimes that's what makes it frustrating to get feedback, is there's a little bit of doubt, like they want me to do this, but I don't think I can do that. But so after getting all that different feedback, I thought, like, you know, how am I going to come up with a solution that I can meet everybody's expectations are all different. How can I make something that's so amazing that it's going to, you know, exceed the expectations of 4 different people looking at things 4 different ways? So, I mean, it's a difficult problem, but I don't know. I was really proud with what I came up with at the end of that. So
that's good. Wow. So how do you remember how you, or maybe you can't put it in words, how you make 4 different people happy?
Well, I think you just I think sometimes when people aren't artists or they don't communicate visually, it's a little bit like it's almost like a different language. Like you have to kind of translate what they're saying to you and try to figure out how you can turn that into your own visual language. So I think really it's asking a lot of questions and really trying to figure out what they really, really want to see, as opposed to what, you know, sometimes trying to, you know, there's like that saying that, you know, writing about music is the same as dancing about architecture saying. And I feel like it's great. I think it's something like that, but it's kind of the same with art for me, because I think that people want to tell you what they want. But, you know, if we could just talk about what we want to see, then we would have no need for visual art. We would just all talk to each other about things, and that would be enough. So I do think there's, you know, a trick to deciphering things into a visual piece.
So well put, well put, well put. Yeah, if you have an art director say things like, I want it more, and then they put a few adjectives that are kind of really big and broad, not specific, not like we want it more, I don't know, dreamy or more something. Like sometimes adjectives are too broad and can be confusing, and then you have to like pin them down a bit more with specifics, like, okay, then would you like more trees up? Are you thinking like trees and clouds and, you know, whatever, and goats, or are you thinking, you know, more people? So you have to get really concrete in a way, I think sometimes.
Yeah.
We have a question from Wendy McKinnon. And by the way, if you're well, you all are watching, if you have a question, put it in the Q&A panel, not the chat panel, because the chat panel is fun. You can chat in there. But if you want me to ask Kendra a question, put it in the Q&A panel, which you find down there. Wendy McKinnon asks, Kendra, if you didn't paint during your time at art school, what did you study?
So I studied graphic design. I didn't grow up knowing any artists. I didn't know anyone that had ever known an artist. My dad was an engineer. My mom was a business person. It wasn't in my life that art was the thing people do. And my parents were really, really supportive of it, but I think also they were obviously clueless. Like they just really didn't know, like, how do we support her? What do we don't know. So when I decided I wanted to do art, it wasn't really until I was probably a senior in high school that I really decided I wanted to even go to art school or be an artist. But graphic design at the time seemed like really the only thing that I thought was actually a sustainable like possibility in the art field. So, you know, I did it really just for that, thinking like, this is the only way you can make a living, or, you know, this is the only way you can have a job. But I don't know. I mean, and I enjoyed it. It was fine. I think I got a lot of information. Like there's still some tools that you would get through graphic design that I think are applicable to any art form, but it really just wasn't what I really wanted to do. So I started painting. I actually, I worked as a security guard at the VA hospital for a year.
What were you going to do? Like shoot the bad guys?
I mean, you know, and I think I wore my hair in like braids at the time. I was 22 or something. It was, I don't know. But you know, everyone was really, I think there's something to be said about being kind to people, that they are more receptive to you telling what to do if you're very nice about it. But so I did that, and I worked like an overnight shift. So I painted an entire show working an overnight shift as a security guard. And the show sold out. And that was kind of like, okay, I can do this forever. So I quit that job and just kind of started painting.
So that's how you transitioned. That's amazing. Transition to painting. And you painted for a while, and then you decided to add illustration onto your bio. So how did you transition to painting, to illustration?
Well, so that was fairly recent. I think, well, you know, Sarah Jo in her webinar last week was talking about how she thinks, you know, you kind of she likes to push the boundaries of different areas of art. Like, you know, the illustration doesn't have to be purely illustration. And I kind of feel like I was already doing that anyway. My painting style was always a little more, I mean, it was a very illustrative style. And I think, you know, it didn't, you know, there was kind of a blurry line there where I think there's illustration, there's art or fine art, and they kind of blur together a little bit. But so I was already doing kind of an illustrative style. And then I took a bunch of your classes, the maths classes, which I really liked.
So
But
glad
the
you
thing,
did.
yeah,
'Cause
the
that's where
thing
I
I,
discovered her.
yeah, that's, I think that's where I kind of got more excited about the idea of illustration, because there's just such a variety of different things that you can paint and draw and do with that. And I loved being a painter, and I still do paintings, but I kind of felt like I was starting to do the same thing over and over and over again. And there was something really appealing about just, someone saying, draw me a monkey on a horse, or whatever random thing that someone might come up. I haven't had a job doing that yet, but whatever random thing someone would say. And then, kind of taking it a whole different direction. So I think it was just the variety of doing something new that was really appealing to me.
Well, I mean, your art is on so many beautiful products, and why not? I see all your work as one piece. Your paintings for your gallery paintings, your illustrations for journals, cards, your children's books, it's all the same voice. And to have them on these things is so great. And I agree with you. You're pushed in so many directions because someone will call you, an art director, to give you an assignment for something to draw and create that you never even thought of. So after many years of being an illustrator, you've drawn a lot of different things, which is pretty great. We have a ton of questions here. We'll chip away at a few of them. Jay Park wants to know, how long does it take you to finish pieces generally? I know it's an impossible question.
I know. So the thing that is hard to explain to people is sometimes it will take me 4 days to get one mark, and then it'll take me 5 hours to finish a piece. But it's like, it's so it really just depends. Like it's the first part that is the variable. Like I could start a piece and everything would be great right away, or it will take me a long time to really figure out what I want or try to research what things should look like. But generally I would say like so for like the book I did, I would usually give myself like 2 days to work on like a final, spread or something like that. And that's, sometimes it's much faster than that. And then some days I really struggle with some things. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and you have to budget in case it's a struggle day. You have to budget extra time, extra days, because
Right.
it's just sometimes it flows, sometimes it really doesn't. So let's see. Sarah Papworth, one of my artists that I represent, writes, hi Sarah, by the way, how long do your paintings take you on average, and do you find Photoshop quicker? Similar.
Yes, so Photoshop is definitely a quicker way to do things, which is why I've been doing that a lot more for illustration purposes. I mean, it's practically, it makes more sense sending things to art directors that way also, but it is definitely, it takes the process and makes it quicker because you can move things around. It's hard to say how long it takes me for a painting because I tend to work on maybe 5 at once. So it's not like I'm sitting down and starting one from beginning and then to completion. It's more like I'm, doing the first part. And the other thing with paintings is things have to dry. So there's a lot of, one layer on here, set it aside, take another one, another layer, and then wait half a day, come back to them. So it's really hard to say, but I would say usually when I've had like a big show and I've had 10 pieces, like it's about a month for 10 pieces.
Yeah.
So.
And then it fits in, as long as it takes. Laura Carrillo asks, Kendra, do you draw your beautiful characters, animals, or shape them from existing painting collage materials? Not sure I understand that. We could pass. Go to a next question. Do you draw them or shape them from existing collage materials? Let's move on to another one. Or maybe Laura, you can explain what you mean. Susan McCabe has a question. And she put it in the Q&A. Okay, it's a comment. Susan McCabe is one of the agents here. She writes, what a fantastic story. I would never have imagined Kendra as a security guard. Her work is so dreamy and ethereal. I love learning something new from the artists I rep in these WebinARTs, never a dull moment. Abby Jacobs says, is your process different for illustration projects than paintings,
Yes.
I guess?
Yeah, no, it's definitely very different. I mean, partly because our directors usually want to see some sort of rough draft, which is something I've never in my entire life done until I started working with Lilla. So I have to figure out a way to get them like a sketch or something, which I've never sketched before. So, and then you have to have approval of it. So there's much more of a back and forth and, you know, kind of tweaking things to fit someone else's expectations a little bit. And then as far as like the general process, I mean, the painting process is very different than the illustration process too, just because working on the computer is a very different thing. So it's definitely a different way of approaching a piece. I mean, I guess it's a similar thing.
It's like different in your head, right?
Yeah, I think I think for me, the thing that's the most different about like the fine art painting and illustration painting is that for my paintings, I might have no idea what it's going to look like until the hour I finish it. Like it could be a complete mess. I have no idea what it is, and I'm just going to paint until all of a sudden it looks amazing and I'm done, and that's it. But with illustration, I have to prove to someone else that it's going to look that way or what it's going to look like ahead of time. And that's a very different mind process for me that I've never had to do in the past. So it's been some practice to figure out how I can, you know, at the beginning of a project, show what it might look like at the end.
Yeah, it's really hard to do roughs when you come from a fine art background. I came from a fine art background too, and I didn't understand because you just go as you go when you paint. It's time and sequence.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with illustration, you plan. It's like a planning session. Your sketch is a planning session. But let us go look at Kendra's work. Let us look at some of her beautiful work now that we've had a nice time getting to chat with her. Let me move these Post-its from my screen. So here we have a beautiful piece she did for this WebinART. And I'm going to go to the next one. Will you tell us about this, Kendra? It's a gorgeous, gorgeous piece.
Yes. So this is one of the pieces I did for Roger Laborde for one of their commissions. And this is definitely one that was photoshopped, like a bunch of, everything's painted traditionally, and then kind of cut and pasted and put together in Photoshop. And it's a similar painting that I might have made as a painting years and years ago, but the process was different that I did it digitally.
So gorgeous. Your colors are amazing. Have you always been a colorist? Have you always loved color? Probably.
Yeah, I think that's one of the ways, that's kind of how I started painting usually, actually, is just picking a random color palette and then kind of building off that. But that's one of the most, I think for me, that's how I get really inspired by a piece, is to pick out the colors for it.
Oh, really? That's interesting. Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. And what was this used for? Cards, journals?
So Roger Laborde, when I send, they'll ask for an image, and then they might turn it into 20 different things. So this was, it was anniversary cards is specifically what it was. But then, you know, they may next month send me a box of samples of where they turned it into wrapping paper or something, which is really cool to see.
Yeah, how fun is that? And they do beautiful printing. Yeah. Next, should I go to the next one?
Yeah, next.
Tell us about this.
So this is just a personal piece I did. Mm-hmm. I've done a few different maps for clients. I've done some for oopsie daisy. I've done like wall art, like a big wall world map. I've done some private commissions for just customers who wanted like a map with like, you know, special personal places kind of highlighted in it. So I wanted to try to do like the globe and show the whole world with, you know, kind of a style of collage.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Next.
It's like the old-fashioned days of slides, right?
Yeah.
When you'd show your work at colleges and you'd say to the slide projector, you are probably too young, but you'd bring your slide carousel and then you'd say next and they'd advance it.
I'm not that young. I remember that very clearly.
Do you? Good.
Yeah.
Tell us about this gorgeous piece.
So this was a sample illustration I did. It's Carl Linnaeus who came up with some like taxonomy of plants and plants. So this is, and that's his house in the background. So this was just a sample I did for a book about him.
It's unbelievable. Are those purple? Those are lupin, I guess. They're
Yes.
unbelievable.
Yeah, I like to research anyway, but I did a lot of research for this sample because I wanted to make sure I put flowers in the scene that actually would have existed there, and, you know, and that he would look like what he looked like, and then his house looked like what his house would look like. And there's something about having those more strict parameters that made it a little almost more freeing, because I don't have to have like every idea in my head. I can just focus on what I really need to put in the image.
Well, doing the reference and having such great reference, it really shows, and it just adds, you know, I always say, as an illustrator, you're a stylist. You're also picking what you're painting and showing. Oh my God, this is so gorgeous.
Yeah, so this was another just personal piece, although I think it is being turned into some greeting cards. But it was just a personal piece I did. I just wanted a kind of moody evening scene with a animal. And it's same thing, it's all traditionally painted, but I kind of, you know, cut and pasted and stuck it together in Photoshop.
So fantastic. You know, it's stunning how you have this beautiful gray, blue, green, and gray everywhere, and then just that little bit of pink.
Yeah.
It's really such control in your choice of paint.
Next.
Oh, I love this. This was one of the earlier pieces. I love this so much. How dramatic that you made. I'm sorry.
Oh, this was just, it was from your home decor class.
Oh, that's where I first saw it.
Yeah.
I knocked my socks off. Tell us about it.
So this was actually just a page of icons. I think it was from one of the minis. So it was, I think I don't remember if it was jungle. It was like a jungle theme or a lush theme or what we were supposed to do, but we were supposed to just draw a bunch of individual elements. And I really went crazy with this one. I think I probably have 20 pages of watercolor paper with just like tons of different little, you know, because it's kind of was a fun assignment because it was almost like jungly things you can kind of make up and nobody really knows. So there are a lot of made up flowers and things that don't really exist.
So gorgeous.
Yeah.
And it's just, you can just keep staring and staring at it. And on the left, the upper left, it's sort of like Renaissance painting or post-Renaissance with the blue flowers and the green leaves on the black. And you've used every color, but so beautifully. And instead of just a primary blue, you use a really pretty aqua, and instead of a yellow, it's a yellow orange, and instead of a red, it's a pinkish maroon. So it's like the interesting variations of each color, and those neutrals on the left, those brown, on the far left, those brown flowers are very beautiful. This reminds me of doing a review in Matt's sales classes. How you fit the images together in a mosaic-y way, especially on the blue quadrant on the right. There's equal spacing around each item, They float and they fit together so beautifully. I'm sure it helps to have Photoshop for that. Just
Yes.
spectacular. And again, how you just randomly went from a light background to a dark background is
Yeah.
just brave.
That's one of the things I really like about kind of a collage way of working is you can kind of cut something out and stick it down, or sometimes you just drop something and you're like, oh, that looks really great that way. And
Oh,
you can
right.
kind of, you see things that you might not imagine, but you just see them, and then you can kind of go with different things that you might not have planned to do otherwise.
So you're speaking about your sense of openness and experimentation
Mm-hmm.
and staying fluid in your process. That's a
Right.
good tip. Next.
Next.
Gorgeous. Tell us about this beautiful piece.
This was one I just did for the menagerie with you
Mm,
recently.
January. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of the same thing, just a lot of random different elements that I kind of put together into a little landscape. I've been trying to do like some brighter colors and using some colors that I don't use very often. I don't use green. Like dark green has been a scary color for me in the last year or so. I've been trying to use it a lot more, and I really like how it looks, but it wasn't a color I used before.
Isn't that so interesting? I didn't use, I know what you mean. I didn't use it like this sort of green and blue. I used just like warm colors.
Uh-huh.
And then I looked at a Matisse piece, and he used a lot of blues and greens, and it
Right.
was a revelation. That's such a good exercise, Kendra, for people. I'm glad you shared that. Next.
Next.
I just have to say, the translucency of the mushrooms on the left, they just are so ethereal and absolutely magical. Crazy about those mushrooms.
So I included this one because I got Procreate. I got an iPad for the first time ever just in December. And this is not like totally made in Procreate because I still did a lot of traditional things that I kind of photoshopped in, but there are parts of this that I did draw with Procreate,
Mhm.
which I was pretty proud of myself that I figured out how to do it. But this was, I think, one of the first, maybe the first thing I did with Procreate. So,
Amazing. Well, how do you like Procreate?
um, I like it. I'm not sure if I know exactly where its place is in my way of working yet, because there was something really nice. I remember I spent one night in bed just drawing, and that was really pretty nice to be able to paint in bed.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
or if you're traveling, it's really an easy way to be able to do art if you're
Yeah.
traveling. But
No
I
muscle.
prefer Photoshop for putting things together. It was a little clunkier for me to do it in Procreate, but definitely, I mean, there's so many options for how to do it. I think
Well, it
it'll
looks
probably be
amazing.
a bit more.
It looks amazing what you did. Yeah, there's like no spillage, no spilling, no, yeah, you can
Yeah.
do it on the sofa lying down. It's
Right.
fabulous. Okay, next. Yes.
Yes.
Oh, this is incredible. I know what
So
this is.
this was just a assignment for, was it boot camp? I think it's boot camp.
This
I
month.
do so many of the classes that I lose track of what they're for.
Sometimes I
This,
must say I do.
this was from boot camp just last couple weeks ago. It was supposed to be Paisley, I think was what
Yeah.
it was supposed to be. I went a little away from Paisley. But I did this one with my son, who I'm home with all day long. So it's
All
right
day,
now.
every
So
day.
it's a little hard to work. But some of the pieces on here are his finger paintings that I cut out and made some of the flowers and paisley with. So it was a way to actually get the assignment done while not having childcare and being stuck at home with a 2-year-old. So
Well, and it's so very different. When I saw this, I was like, wow, Kendra, this is really, the colors are different, the imagery, it's so exciting too. You know, you keep pushing yourself in new directions, and it all has the stamp of Kendra Binney. It's all very you, but it's just, I'm crazy about it. So the assignment was to do a Paisley.
I think it was a Paisley.
Jigsaw.
Oh, yeah, Paisley pattern for a puzzle.
Yeah. And so, Susan and Kim, are you listening? We have to pitch this to puzzle companies. That would be incredible. I would do this puzzle. Totally. Okay. Next. Yes.
Next. Yeah.
Oh, just unbelievable.
Yeah, and this was another one for Roger Laborde that they used. And same kind of thing. It's a lot of individually drawn and painted pieces. I mean, I think the funny thing is they want me to send them things in layers. And I think this has 120 layers.
Oh my God.
So the hardest part of my job with them is always condensing my layers so it makes sense. Because it's like there's little overkill. But
so how big is a file? Like 50 megs, 100 megs?
Yeah, I think it's about 100 when it's.
What do you do? We transfer or something?
Yeah, I mean, I think I condense it down. I put some of the layers together, but like when I'm working, I just have, I mean, I feel a little like an insane person. It's just like random things here. Like there might be one flower on an entire layer.
Unbelievable. But it gives you freedom. Then you can move and squish and smash and twist and turn and flip and flop and stretch and duplicate.
Right.
Yeah, I know my Photoshop.
Yeah.
Photoshop. Cool. Next. I hate to go. I hate to go to the next one. I just want to stare at this a while. Okay, we'll go. Next. Let's see. Whoops. Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, this is just a kind of a pile of things I have going on right now. So these are all like unfinished parts of pieces. So just like as an example of what I might cut out to put somewhere else, or you know, some of these things are from projects.
It's unbelievable. Again, the ethereal quality on the bottom right of that deer. Just how you get that translucency. It reminds me, is it Leonora Harrington or Leonora Feely? Oh, well, I don't know, one of the mid-century, early 20s woman painters. Carrington, is it? Thank you, Sarah. Leonora Carrington. It is, right? Thank you. Oh, now they're all Leonora Carrington. Don't forget at the end, we're going to have a little guessing game. And Kendra, do you have the journal? Well, we'll wait and show them when you're on big screen again. So let me go to the next page. Oh, God, that's stunning.
Yes, so this was another, I just did a bunch of stuff for Roger Laborde recently. So there's a bunch of stuff on here for him or for them. But this is the same thing, a lot of different individual parts that are all kind of put together. And actually the background of this, I mean, so this is the other thing about the way I work, that one, I'm super messy. I have stuff everywhere. I'm kind of a hoarder. But this piece, the background of this piece is a painting I started probably 20 years ago and didn't do anything with. And I saw it and I used it for this. So, and I do that a lot where I'll just randomly find something that I had started and never really found a purpose for. And then like literally 20 years later, I might think of a reason for it. Maybe 15, maybe not quite 20, 15 maybe.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. Look at those butterflies, the detail and the beetle in the bottom right. And the flowers, how you do the veining. But again, your colors are just, it's so rich and lush, but soft at the same time. And the reference you use, the very specific markings on the moth or butterfly and on that leaf, I think on the bottom right. But yeah, you'd like to do research, don't you?
Yeah, I like research, and I also really like bugs. And I mean, like I said, my thing started off with like little things. I really like the really tiny details of things. So I always like painting that kind of stuff. Next. So I just included this one because I do work from home all the time with a 2-year-old.
Yes.
So I have one section of my studio that is entirely mine, and the door is closed and no one is allowed to come in it. But most of the other areas I'll have the grown-up part right next to the kid part so that I can work and he feels like he's working with me. So I can get a little bit more done. So, you know, he'll sit down in his spot and he'll do his work. And he calls it work too. He does his work and I will do mine. And we also have a little area where I have my easel and he has a short easel next to it.
Oh, and how old is he?
So he's 2.5. He'll be 3 this summer.
Wow.
So
this is gorgeous. Gorgeous. Wow. And the rainbow, of course, on the wall is magnificent.
Yeah. I'm really, I kind of can't work very well if I'm not in a space that feels like, I don't know. I feel like I have to have myself in the space a little bit. Like it has to be pleasing to me. And even though I'm messy, I need the space to be orderly. Like things need to have a place to go, even if they aren't there during the actual painting process. Like, I don't know. So I built this myself too.
And it's neat as a pin. Wait,
yeah.
So I know that IKEA dresser on the left, but you built the wooden section.
So I took a bunch of IKEA stuff and I just I hacked it all up because I couldn't find I don't know why, but surprisingly, I could not find a child adult hybrid desk.
Wow.
I had to kind of cut one up.
That's amazing. That's beautiful. Okay, next. Yes.
Next. So this is another, just what I've been doing a lot lately is my son will do his paintings, and then while he's painting, I'll cut his paintings up and, you know, try to turn it into something.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah, so those are just little finger paintings, and I made some flowers.
Oh, Kim says you created the desk in the same way you create your art. Yeah, you photoshopped your desk. Yeah, you just cut and pasted it. Wouldn't that be nice if we could do it? We do not. Well, I'd love to see what you would do with a giant 3D printer. Can you imagine?
Yeah, I would really like that. If you have one, I would gladly do some stuff.
I wish. I want to wait till they get a little better. But yeah, imagine if you could mix all kinds of colors and make your flowers. Wow.
Right. Yeah. Next. And then this is another one I did kind of with some finger paintings. And then you'll see, I actually just did this last week with some of the paisley parts from the paisley pattern also.
Oh,
yeah. So I just was kind of playing around with mixing up some shapes with a little bit more traditional styles of things. Sometimes I think stuff like this is just, it's fun. And I think that's the one nice thing. Like I don't get as much work done as I would like with my son around all the time, but I do think he encourages me to see art as a fun thing because, you know, it is a job. It's not, you know, even though I enjoy it, it's still most of the time a job. So it's nice to think of it and like kind of play with it a little bit more sometimes like a kid would do.
I love how the tiger is coming out of the book. And I love her hair, by the way, that it's authentic, that the kind of the strands coming down. Narissa says, we have 3D printers at our libraries here in Vancouver, Kendra, once we're open again, lol.
Oh,
so that's good to know.
I'll be there all the time.
Yeah, I wonder how that works. Okay.
Done. And I think that's the last one.
Oh, that's the last one. Oh, that was wonderful. So let me stop the share. Boom, here we are back. Do you want to hold up the prize?
So it's this little journal. And it's got a little lock on it so no one will read your secrets.
It's beautiful. Roger, and that's Roger Laborde?
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So here's how we do the game. I'm going to tell you a category. You can guess as many times as you want, as often as you want. Kim is going to spot the winner. And because often the answers come so quickly, she may not get the first correct answer. That's okay. It's the first one she sees. So that's how we do it. Those are the rules of the game. And then we will ask for your address and mail you the prize. So the category, and you type your answers in the chat, not in Q&A. Make sure they are in the chat panel. Oh, someone had a question. We'll get to that in a minute. So the category is a color. Type in a color. Wow, they're coming fast. Whoa, good luck, Kim. Holy moly, so fast. They're popping in. So you guess a color. I know you want that journal, don't you? Well, good luck, Kim. Oh.
Kim knows how to speed read, right? She's a speed reader.
Can you see these too, Kendra?
Yeah, it comes up on, it like just kind of pops up on the top.
Oh my God. And Kim, so when you do get it, you can just talk, Kim, and let us know.
Okay, someone said it, but I need to scroll all the way back.
Oh,
Going
okay.
so fast. Allison Day. So the color was fuchsia, and Allison Day got it. So Allison, you can email me at kim@lillarogers.com, and we'll organize getting the beautiful journal to you.
And was that I know what your day was like this morning, Kim. So I want to say, was that the hardest thing you've done all day? But I
think so. I have never seen comments go so fast.
Is that unbelievable? That was so
you.
great. Yay. That was wonderful. We have time for a couple more questions, and I see that we have a Jillian here. Lynn Gaines, great to see you, Lynn. A lot of you are my students. Lynn asks, do you find that it's easier to Photoshop paint because you already traditionally paint? In other words, like you had that understanding of paint and mixing, probably.
Yeah, you know, I think that everything I do is a little easier because of other things I've done that aren't related. Like I think that my graphic design background is helpful with my paintings. I think it helps with like knowing things about composition, typography, things like that. I think that knowing how to paint and mix colors helps with Photoshop and digital work. So I think that, you know, even though I'm not doing graphic design, or I'm not necessarily, if I'm not doing fine art, I think it all still kind of helps with the foundation of how to do other things. So I don't know if that answered it.
No, that totally makes sense, 100%. Jacqueline Gutierrez, hello, good to see you from class 2, asks, do you paint at actual size or do you paint larger and then shrink the images down? Doesn't apply.
Well, so if I was painting a painting to be a painting, most of the time they're large, like maybe 24 inches by 24 inches, or you know, something about like that. But if I were to be like, you know, for the book project that I just did, I didn't make things bigger. I just, you know, I started with the page at size so that I could, you know, make sure that the amount of detail I had was going to be accurate. Because, you know, you don't want either a huge amount of detail for something that no one's going to see, or
Right.
have, you know, huge big brush strokes if they've been sized way up. So it kind of depends on what I'm doing it for. But I would say I do smaller if it's going to be something, like if it's going to be a greeting card, I'm probably not going to do a huge big piece to make a greeting card.
So great. Well, my last question is, what are you watching or reading right now, or none of the above, having a two-year-old and a career?
Yeah, so I really don't watch much television or read many books because I don't sit still very long. So I get really distracted. I think it drives my husband crazy too, because he wants to watch like a movie in the evening, and I sit for 10 minutes and then I get up and go do something else. So I don't watch a lot. I do, like if I want to relax, I do work a lot in my garden. I'm trying to have a really pretty garden this year. So I do a lot of things like that. And I like to build stuff too. So those are kind of the things I do. if for fun for myself.
So fantastic. Kendra, this has been absolutely wonderful. And I thought I knew you pretty well, but I learned, and I, your agent, learned so much and got to know your work even better and your process and all that. It's absolutely fascinating. I'm sure our viewers really enjoyed getting to know you. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you, Kendra, for being my guest this week. And again, I will not be doing a WebinART next week. I'm working on some projects, but after that, we are excited to have Sarah Walsh on 2 weeks from today. That is June 11th. And if you haven't filled out the poll, take a moment to do that. And art directors and editors, contact us if you're interested in seeing the 6 brand new pitches that my artists did with me a few weeks ago for children's books that they authored and illustrated. And Kendra was one of them. And I will say, Kendra's story is amazing and illustrated. Well, she isn't illustrated yet, but she's done have you done a spread, or is it just in my head?
I've done some partial things.
Partial things.
Yeah, nothing finished.
But it will be, you can imagine, spectacular. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for attending, and we will see you next time. Bye.